All right, hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about the Fatherhood Premium for a bit, and we're going to talk about how race impacts that. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and let's get started. So first, let me talk about this Fatherhood Premium for a second. This is really this idea that men are afforded certain benefits to being a father when it comes to work-related assumptions. So when women are perceived as mothers or possibly going to be mothers or of the age to be mothers, there is a cost to that. They are considered less viable hiring and or promoting because they're seen as going to need to be caregivers within the home, and that's going to be their primary role in life, and so they are less valuable within workplace environments. The opposite is true for fathers, and this Fatherhood Premium is really getting at that. It's getting at this idea that because there's this societal notion that fathers are going to be the breadwinners of the household, that if you're a father, you're going to be providing for even more family members. Thus, you are going to be more committed to your work because that is what provides for your family, and that that this job will become, you'll be even more committed to your job, which sounds contradictory because it is, right? But again, what ends up happening is that you see this increase in wages, you see this increase in annual earnings, and you see this increase also in time spent at work, which is interesting, right? For fathers overall. But these happen, and this article is really talking about how they happen in very different ways when we're discussing race. Okay, so I'm not going to get overarchingly into the plethora of information that this article gives. I really want you to hammer in on a couple of points, and I'm going to hit those and we're going to call it. Okay, it's really again, I want you to understand that that's that notion of benefits that are allotted to men when they become fathers within the workplace that allow them certain opportunities that women actually will have the opposite effect happen to them when they become mothers, right? So I really want you to understand that as part of the Fatherhood Premium. I also want you to understand that really this comes from fatherhood being seen as a symbol of commitment and of breadwinning for the family, right? That to be committed to their family is to be committed to breadwinning, and that's it, right? Which is also a dangerous notion for fathers, right? It limits their capacity to be the caregivers within the home. It limits their ability to be seen as the primary parent, right? And so when you look at men that are maybe single families, single parents, or maybe men that are not seen as, and we'll kind of get into this more next week when we look at an article that talks about how families are changing. But really, when you're looking at how that role of caregiver is and has been shifted in some ways to the fathers, this sometimes limits their ability to utilize that, or limits their ability to really invest in the ways that they may want to in that caregiving role. But again, we're going to talk about kind of how this premium itself, even if across the board that is the role they want to provide, is different depending on their race. And really, they dropped these races into 3 categories. So they dropped them into white, Latino, and Black men. Those were the categories they were really assessing and really working to kind of look at and compare. And within that, they found that white and Latino men have an increase of wages, an increase of annual earnings, and annual time spent at work. This was the true for all of the men. However, Black men experienced smaller increases in wages, smaller increases in annual earnings, those still increases compared to women. But they did not spend more time at work, which was interesting, right? And there's some reasons for that, and they get into that very, very well in the article. And they also, again, saw this very big difference. And this is the distinction I really want to hammer in, that white and Latino men earn more when their wives work less versus Black men. They did not see this. And really, I want to tie this back into the lecture I just did, where we're talking about the stereotypes for Black men and Black women. So if you have a stereotype of Black women as the welfare queen and Black men as these deadbeat, non-caregiving, like lazy members of their family, then it makes sense that unfortunately that is these stereotypes are driving home this idea within the workplace that Black men should not be earning more just because their wives are working less, because we don't want to create a situation where their wives are working less, right? Because these are bodies we can control on a workforce that we can control, so we need to do so in these ways. So these are kind of the main core points that I really wanted to drive home, and the main core findings that they found. It is interesting to see these things and to see how there were differences. Again, there were differences between whites and Latinos as well. Whites had the highest increase in wages, highest annual earnings, and also the most consistently high annual time spent at work. So that's interesting. But I do want you to kind of skim through there. And really for this article was really put in there because I really wanted to touch in on the things, how fatherhood was impacting work, because so often we hear about how, because I did put another piece in here about how COVID's impact on women's employment experiences. And I really wanted to also note how fatherhood impact workplace experiences. So that's kind of where I want to leave that. And I'm going to go ahead and hop off here and we will do the next lecture. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great day.